Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gents. This is Chad speaking. I know y'all were expecting another hilarious episode where we solve some mystery or another. Unfortunately, all of the audio I had recorded for today's episode was corrupted somehow. Now, I could record the episode again and edit it all in one day, but I don't think the quality would be up to par, and I really want to make sure that this podcast is doing its very best to provide the listeners with the best we can offer. So, on that note, this week I present to you a placeholder episode. What you're about to hear is pretty bad audio, and it was the first episode that I tried to record with a friend about 6 months ago as a template for how the podcast was going to be. Originally, we were going to have a guest expert every week, and if you listen really carefully, you can hear the air quotes around the word expert. But that proved to be too difficult to pull off, so I went searching and found Colt. And I know I'm talking a lot, so without further ado, please enjoy this prototype episode that never made it into the podcast. Oh, and it's about DB Cooper, so just pretend you haven't heard the actual first episode yet. Is DB Cooper still alive and well somewhere on the moon? How many toes and fingers does he have? Did he get all A's in school? You can find out the answers to these questions on this, the very first episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Solved! I'm going to go ahead and just answer those questions real quick. No, 10, and I have no idea. Well, I assume 10. I don't know. Anyway, I haven't seen his grades. I am your host, Chad Kimmons, and this is the podcast where each and every week we sit down with a guest expert and discuss a mystery that is unexplained or unsolved, and we solve it. We just solve the out of it. For the first episode, I wanted to cover something that's like relatively modern history, and who hasn't heard of DB Cooper? So to that point, my guest expert today is one Mr. Jerome Cavendish. Welcome to the podcast, Jerome.
Thank you for having me, Chad. Real.
Oh,
I don't know what's so funny.
You just have a very funny name.
Wow. Okay. So this is what it's going to be
This
like.
is probably what it's going to be like.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on. I have spent most of my good years studying DB Cooper.
What did you spend your bad years doing?
Oh,
Coke.
Man.
Lines of Coke.
I don't think I'm at liberty to discuss what I was doing during those years. It could incriminate me again.
You're just really building a past here that I feel like is more interesting than what we're actually here to talk about.
Oh, I don't know. The past of DB Cooper captured me from childhood.
Oh, yeah?
I got my PhD in solving unsolved mysteries
From
at the age of 24 from ASU. And
what is that? Arizona State University?
It's Always Right University.
Oh, okay.
We're always right there.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say that seems like something that Arizona State University would have a fucking degree in, like just solving unsolved mysteries.
No, but DB Cooper is quite the enigma of our country. It is, I believe, still the only unsolved major airline hijacking. And of course, we're about to end that because we're going to solve it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the facts.
I have my cork board up in front of me with lots of red string.
Are there plenty of pins and pictures of people?
There are pins. There are pictures. There are maps. There are big question marks and red circles around faces.
Just imagining like red circles all over, like not even just around faces. You're just like randomly circling shit.
So Chad, why don't you tell me, the story of DB Cooper?
Okay, well, first off, I have to verify your credentials, and most people most people might think that we're gonna like post your degree online, link to it, but no, you could very easily fake that. So I'm gonna ask you 3 questions about the topic. As long as you get one right, we can move on. That's right, listeners. There is a it's abysmally low bar. It's probably at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. That's how low the bar is on this podcast.
That'd be a really hard bar to get to.
It's weirdly ironic. So question number 1, how much money was involved in the mystery that we're talking about today?
Well, $200,000 if you're specifically discussing the cash.
Yeah, I was talking about the cash.
Okay.
What was DB Cooper's real name?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
I feel like I almost got you there. And then finally, what kind of plane was hijacked?
It was a Boeing 727.
That is correct. All right, so I guess we can get right into the meat here. So, on November 24th, 1971, that's the day before Thanksgiving, a middle-aged man wearing a black business suit and carrying a black attaché case approached the flight counter of Northwest Orient Airlines at Portland International Airport. He identified himself as Dan Cooper, and he used cash to purchase a one-way ticket on Flight 305 to Seattle. So far, just a normal dude taking a flight, probably a businessman. I mean, he was wearing a black business suit, you know. So he boarded the aircraft, as we said, a Boeing 727, and he took seat 18C, which there's all kinds of different accounts here. Like there's one account that's like 18E. There was one that was 15D. Like basically he was in
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. He was in the back of the plane and he took a seat. He lit a cigarette because this was before any kind of regulations on that kind of thing. You could just,
you could be cool on a plane still.
You could be cool on a plane, light cigarettes, have sex in your seat, I assume. I don't know. It wasn't alive in the 70s.
Yeah, the only thing you can still do on a plane is order a bourbon and 7.
Which is exactly what he ordered. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to one Miss Florence Schaffner. She was a flight attendant. She assumed that it was just a note from like a lonely businessman with his phone number, so she dropped it into her purse. And Cooper leaned over and whispered, "Miss, you'd better take a look at that note. I have a bomb." Now, Miss Schaffner says that the note was printed in neat, all capital letters with a felt tip pen. The exact word.
Weirdly specific, I've always thought.
Yeah.
That she knew it was a felt tipped pen.
Right. Didn't see him writing it, but she knew it was a felt tip pen. Like,
and also that he took the note back. So she looked at it for like a little bit. And is like, yeah, it was definitely a Sharpie.
This is
weird. Just a weird. I've always thought that was a weird little bit to this case.
She was very specific. Yeah, it was a Sharpie brand felt tip pen. Nobody, like we said, nobody knows what was the exact wording was because he did take the note back. And after she read it, Cooper told her to sit beside him, and she asked to see the bomb that he said. So he opened his case, and there were 4 red sticks with wires, which could have actually been anything. Like, could have been dynamite or something, could have been an actual bomb, or it could have just been like he took those cardboard tubes that people use to put like artwork in, like cut it up into 4 or 8 or whatever, and like just painted them red. Which, I mean, I don't know what a bomb looks like. Do you know what a bomb looks like at all?
I mean, there's a lot of different bombs.
Well, this particular type of bomb,
no, we don't know because it never went off. We never.
Right. I mean, this.
We don't know.
This description probably would have fooled me into thinking it was a bomb. Honestly,
I wouldn't have taken a risk.
True. So he states his demands: $200,000 in negotiable American currency, 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the aircraft. So the pilot, William Scott, contacted the Seattle Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control, and Schaffner, she described him as being calm, polite, and well-spoken. He ordered a second bourbon and water, paid his drink tab, tipped generously, or at least attempted to. There's no mention of whether or not Schaffner took the tip, and then offered to request meals for the flight crew as well when they stopped in Seattle. So they land. Now, I don't know why I find this next part funny, but like during the refueling, while they laid out their plan, and they were going to take a southeast course toward Mexico City at minimum airspeed possible without stalling the aircraft, which is approximately 100 knots, and a maximum of 10,000 foot altitude. I assume this is to stay under radar. I mean,
no, actually.
Oh, is it not?
No, it was because DB Cooper wanted the plane to remain out at air pressure, and and so they didn't like seal it in, meaning they couldn't go to airspeed or air cruising altitude, which would kill him.
Right, and I do have here in my notes that they kept the cabin was supposed to remain unpressurized, so that actually makes sense.
Yep.
I didn't even think about that. I just thought it was to like stay under radar.
Well, no, and because his jumping forward a little bit planned to jump out. You don't jump out from cruising altitude. That's
true.
That's way too high.
You would probably die before you would suffocate before you got to the ground.
I don't know anything about that. I'm a DB Cooper expert, not a skydiving expert.
Okay, I assume that that's what would happen. Now, the co-pilot told Cooper that a second refueling was going to be necessary, and they discussed options and agreed on Reno, Nevada as the refueling stop.
What a terrible choice of places.
Right? Like, just anywhere in Nevada, honestly. I know people like Las Vegas, but I'm just not a fan of Nevada. It's so hot. There's like nothing in that state, and we just lost all of our listeners in Nevada.
Yeah, all three of them gone.
All three just decided they'd had enough because we're sitting here bashing Nevada. So they take off. The refueling process was delayed, though, because there was a vapor lock in the fuel tanker's truck's pumping mechanism, and Cooper became suspicious, but he allowed it to go on. They got the plane refueled, but I don't know why, but I'm imagining, it doesn't ever mention that he's got a gun, but I'm just imagining they tell him that the process is going to be delayed or whatever, and he's got a gun, and he's just looking out the blinds like a meth head who keeps thinking they're hearing the cops.
I've spent many sleepless nights laying awake wondering, why didn't he have a gun? He got a bomb onto a plane.
That's true.
He got he could have just, slid a little snub nose in next to it.
Or a knife. He could have put a knife in his shoe or something.
There's a lot of things he could have done without assuring his own destruction.
I mean, again, this is back before there were any TSA regulations, really. I mean, you had people
clearly bombs,
rocket launchers, bombs, all kinds of stuff.
And it has just tormented my dreams. How different this entire story could have been if DB Cooper had had a firearm.
How could it have been different? It would have just been the same process.
He could have said, "I have a gun."
Okay, so that one little fact changes, but everything stays the same.
Yes,
fair enough. At approximately 7:40 p.m., the plane took off with only 5 people on board, that being Cooper, pilot Scott, flight attendant Mucklow, the co-pilot, and a flight engineer, H.E. Anderson. Now, they were followed by 2 F-106 fighter aircrafts from McChord Air Force Base, and there was also a Lockheed T-33 trainer that shadowed. But it ran out of fuel, or ran low on fuel, and they turned back near the California state line. But basically, overall, there were 5 planes in total trailing this hijacked plane. Now, I mention this because not a one of them saw him jump or could pinpoint his location after he landed, where he could have landed.
Now, to be fair, we are talking about a man in a dark suit jumping out of a plane at night.
Absolutely. Clearly Slender Man, although I've never known Slender Man to jump out of planes.
Well, this isn't a show about things that don't exist.
That's true.
This is a show about very real mysteries that we are going to very real solve.
Air quotes, very real solve. So after the takeoff, he told everybody to go into the cockpit, or told Mucklow to join everybody in the cockpit. And around 8 p.m., somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, there were warnings going off, and there was a warning that a slight movement on the tail of the plane. And when they landed in Reno, Cooper was nowhere to be found. FBI agents and state police and local police searched the plane inside and out, could not find this man. Now, what I find interesting is that they believed it to be near Ariel, Washington, that he jumped. And it's just such a weird range. We know it was somewhere between Seattle and Reno because nobody saw him jump, but he wasn't there in Reno. But we think maybe it was Ariel, not very far away. Got this wide area to search. It's probably Ariel, Washington's where he jumped out, though. I don't know why they're suddenly Chicago people. But yeah, he was nowhere to be found. And the FBI agents recovered 66 unidentified latent fingerprints aboard the airliner, which could have been anybody's, really. And they found Cooper's black clip-on tie and 2 of the 4 parachutes that he had asked for. They began questioning everybody. There were more than 800 suspects, and all but 2 dozen were eliminated from the investigation over the course of a few weeks. There was an Oregon man named D.B. Cooper who had a minor police record, and he was obviously one of the first ones, like, interested or person of interest in the case. He was quickly ruled out as a suspect, but a local reporter named James Long, rushing to meet an imminent deadline, confused the eliminated suspect's name with the pseudonym used by the hijacker, and the error was later republished, and it cemented D.B. Cooper in history as the name of this hijacker. Can you imagine being this like real D.B. Cooper guy?
Oh man, I've dreamed about it for
like,
years.
All the flack he got, like, what's your name? It's D.B. Cooper. Oh, you're the guy. No, not that guy. I was cleared. But isn't that, yes, that's the name they printed. His name was Dan Cooper, but it's not me, I swear. Do you think I'd be living in this single-wide trailer, working at a 9-to-5 at the old steel mill if I had stolen all that money? So search efforts focused on Clark and Cowlitz counties, encompassing the terrain immediately south and north, respectively, of the Lewis River in southwest Washington. But then they also coordinated an aerial search using fixed-winged aircraft and helicopters from the Oregon Army National Guard. And this was along the entire flight path from Seattle to Reno, even though they were pretty sure he jumped out near Ariel. This bit, like, it's not really relevant, I guess, but it's kind of funny that, like, there were these 2 local women stumbled on a skeleton in an abandoned structure in Clark County, and it was later identified as the remains of a female teenager who had been abducted and murdered several weeks before. I don't know why I included that in my notes. There had to have been something else that I didn't put in there that I thought was going to be funnier.
Yeah, that's just tragic.
That's not funny. That is just a murdered person.
Yeah, that's just awful.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
Yeah, so in 1971, $200,000 today would be the purchasing power of about $1.25 million.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of money. Buy an island. Well, not an island. Islands probably cost more than that.
Small island.
Just like, you know, those desert islands in cartoons where there's like just enough room for a palm tree and one guy, and for whatever reason, a monkey, because there's always a monkey on deserted islands. No idea why. That's the kind of island you could probably purchase with that much money.
That's it.
The FBI finally announced that it was suspending active investigations of the Cooper case on July 8th, 2016. Basically, they were just like, guys, look, we've spent so much time and money and resources on this. We got to move on. Like, everybody wants to know who Cooper is, obviously, but we have to freaking move on. Like, there's terrorism happening. We got to move on. But they were willing to accept any legitimate physical evidence, if any, came up. And the 60-volume case file compiled over the 45-year course of the investigation is to be preserved for historical purposes at the FBI headquarters in D.C. And you can actually look at a lot of it on the FBI website. There are currently 28 packets full of evidence. I went through some of these. Like, it's very dry stuff. Like, if you're looking to fall asleep, you might want to read over this because it's very technical, very dry. And it's all open to read to the public. Let's get on to physical evidence here. February 1980, probably the biggest clue, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram, downstream from Vancouver on the Columbia River, he uncovered 3 packets of the ransom cash as he was going through the, raking the riverbank to build a campfire. They were seriously disintegrated. Like, you can find pictures of these online, and they're really bad shape, but they were still bundled together in rubber bands.
Yeah, Ingram even sold, I think, what was it, 15 of them at auction?
I know he sold some of them, and he got like $90,000 for.
He got a lot of money for decrepit $20 bills.
Did you buy one? Were you one of the ones that bought one?
Oh, please. I have my own pack.
Oh, please. I am DB Cooper. I've got the rest of the money. Yeah, but none of the other bills have ever turned up. And anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'd like to speak a little bit about Brian Ingram. Good friend of mine, obviously. He stumbled upon
why is that obvious?
Because
obviously
I spent years stalking him until he became my friend.
How many years? Did you have a warrant out for your arrest or some kind of restraining order against you from this guy?
No,
I'm
he
just
didn't
imagining...
know I was stalking him.
Oh, okay. So it's not like
I'm good at this.
Okay. So how did you convince him to become your friend?
Oh, I just found out where he liked to hang out, what
bars
he went to, and slowly became his friend. And we began discussing the case, as I call it, because there's only one in my life.
I was gonna and because it's a case.
It's the bills are fascinating. He did find the gold mine.
So I do want to talk a bit about there were just in 1972 there were 15 copycats. I just want to mention real briefly my two favorites.
Please do.
Because I think they're hilarious.
I think they're all just horrible and will never live up to the original.
Oh, obviously not, because they all got caught. But these two are pretty funny. So Rob Dolan Hetty, he was a paratrooper and Vietnam veteran, stormed a United Airlines 727 in Reno in early June, extorted $200,000 and 2 parachutes, and then jumped into darkness near Washoe Lake, which is about 25 miles south of Reno. The police found Hetty's car parked near a lake and arrested him as he was returning to it the next morning. I find this hilarious because why did you go back to your car?
Because he wasn't original enough to come up with his own hijacking plan.
Imagine, the car is registered to you, and it's just sitting out there by this lake, and somebody's like, hey, there's this car. I've never seen this car. Maybe I should report it to the police. So they run the tags, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is the guy that jumped out of the plane with $200,000. I'm sure he's coming back for it. Let's just wait here. Problem solved. Case over. And that's exactly what happened. I don't know. It's just hilarious how stupid criminals can be sometimes. And then my other favorite one was Martin McNally, who was an unemployed service station attendant, used an SMG in late June to commandeer an American Airlines 727 en route from St. Louis to Tulsa. Then he diverted it eastward to Indiana and bailed out with $500,000 in ransom. And what makes this one funny is that he lost the ransom money as he was going out of the plane. I don't know if the wind ripped it out of his hand or what, but he lost all the money. And then he was apprehended a few days later in a Detroit suburb. So not only did he not get the money, not only did he lose the money on his way out,
but he ended up in Detroit.
Exactly. Wound up in Detroit, in a suburb.
Yeah, not great. And see, DB was let's just call him Dan. Let's call him Dan. Dan was very smart, and he actually tied his money to him.
That was thank you. That was very important. See, this is why I bring in experts, guys. I'm just here to kind of give the facts, let my experts tell me.
Yeah, you are very, very well read on the subject. I'm very pleased.
So there have been a number of people who were suspected to be Cooper. I think in total it was 24, 25. Maybe. Well, no, I think it was only actually 12. I didn't put this in my notes for some reason because, again, I'm not an expert. I'm just here to provide the basic outline of information. I don't know why I'm talking like this. The most prominent one that stuck out to me, actually, though, was Robert Rackstraw.
Oh, yeah. May he rest in peace.
Yeah, he died of cancer, didn't he?
Yeah, just earlier this year.
Yeah. But he was offered something like $2 million to come clean because somebody wanted to make a movie about his life because this guy was just convinced that he was DB Cooper. And he would have gotten maybe 1 or 2 years in prison. But if he was Cooper, He took it to his grave because, as we said, he died earlier this year, and he would not.
I want to amend myself. It was a heart condition.
Oh, okay.
But yes.
Now, one of the most prominent theories about what happened to DB Cooper is that he died in the fall, and his body was just like really well covered by the forest, and that's why they couldn't
eaten by animals,
or eaten by animals.
There's a lot of things that can happen.
Right.
Washington's a very wild state, a lot of wilderness.
Yeah.
Bears.
So Special Agent Larry Carr, who reignited the case in 2007, this goes back to the theory that he died, said, and I quote, "We originally thought Cooper was an experienced jumper, perhaps even a paratrooper. We concluded after a few years that this was simply not true. No experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch black night in the rain with a 200-mile-an-hour wind in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat. It was simply too risky. He also missed that his reserve chute was only for training and had been sewn shut."
So we do need to talk about that. So initially, the FBI tried to give Cooper military-grade parachutes. He turned those down, demanding that they were civilian parachutes. Now, so they went to a local skydiving company and were just like, dude, get us 2 reserves and 2 chutes. And they did it really fast. And one of the chutes they discovered later was a training chute, and that was the reserve chute that he had taken with him.
And because it was training, it had been sewn shut.
It was sewn shut. It was never meant to be used. It was not prepared. So we do not believe that DB Cooper was in fact a skilled anything to do with jumping. He he would have noticed that. He would have known what it was. But yeah, so thank you for bringing us back around to that, because that was important.
So you people who are obsessed with DB Cooper, you have a name for yourselves, right? Like, what do you call yourselves?
We call ourselves Cooperheads. Yes.
Really?
We have a Reddit. We have a
Reddit. Something like I would have assumed you called yourself something like Cooper Cats. Or Cooperites. Coop guys. Cooper, cool Cooper dudes. The guys who, okay, I'm done.
We don't call ourselves any of.
Clearly, you call yourselves, what was it? Cooperheads. I wasn't paying attention.
Cooperheads. Yes, thank you. But yeah, so it really does leave us with this mystery. Is DB Cooper still out there? He clearly wasn't a man he didn't do this for notoriety. He was just trying to get away and start a new life. So he
did it for the thrill. Regardless, I feel like you're about to lay a big heaping dose, a big steaming pile of truth on me. And I want to hear it.
I am. Now, I wish I could tell you that I know his name.
I'm going to edit that in post so it comes out. I am, and then DB Cooper.
Oh, well, I'm not. Now, I wish I could tell you that I knew who DB Cooper's real name was. But we just don't have that information. What I can tell you, through years of studying DB Cooper and walking those hallowed hills of Washington and screaming at the clouds to tell me something.
Seems odd. Okay.
I have consulted with scholars, with holy men, with those who meddle in the dark arts.
Who would that be? Like, in this day and age, who meddles in the dark arts?
I don't know. Spiritualists? I had a medium read it, okay?
It just seems really like, it's so 2004 or something.
Anyways, I am certain, without a doubt, because of my meeting with a medium, that DB Cooper is dead. And he died falling out of the airplane. Because I spoke to his ghost through a medium. And that's just the only thing that makes sense.
Okay.
This has been a really great show. I thank you so much for bringing me on.
It's a bit anticlimactic, to be honest, but I mean,
Hey, I want to meet the man too, but I mean, you cannot deny what a medium tells you. I mean, these people are serious.
All right, dear listeners, there you have it. The guest expert that I brought on is actually a crackpot who claims he spoke to DB Cooper's ghost.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not entirely certain that you spoke to the guy's ghost. Maybe you've gone a little crazy over the years, but I'll accept your explanation that DB Cooper is dead.
Would it be crazy for me to live in the hills of Washington and talk to the trees? No, I have a tent.
Okay, yeah, that's
well, then I'm crazy. Is it crazy to stalk a man who found some DB Cooper money for 4 years before talking to him, becoming his best friend?
Absolutely, that is crazy.
Oh,
that is bonkers. You're shit out of your mind. Crazy.
Well, I wish healthcare was better.
So do I. But let's not get political because this isn't a political podcast. Well, there you have it, listeners. DB Cooper's dead. We verified his credentials, so this is an expert. And I just want to thank, what was your name? Jerome Cavendish. Jerome Cavendish. I want to thank Jerome Cavendish, my expert today. And if you enjoyed the episode, the best way to support the podcast at the moment, because this is the first episode, is to just keep listening and spread the word. Tell everybody you know to listen. If they refuse, hold them down, shove earbuds in their ears, and make them listen. And actually, please don't do that. I don't need lawsuits. If you have an unexplained mystery that you want us to solve here, you can send it to mysteriessolvedpodcast@gmail.com. I do ask that you only send in ones that are well documented and not paranormal, because we talk about serious shit on this podcast, Joe. Except for my guest today, who decided to talk to a ghost. Apparently,
hey, look!
I promise you that will never happen.
The science
again.
backs it.
If you want paranormal, you listen to somebody else. And we will catch you next week with a brand new unexplained mystery. Hey guys, if you're still listening, I just want to apologize for my expert. He's clearly out of his mind. I think all of the years that he spent researching this case kind of made him go insane. But I did just want to touch on something real quick. Mediums aren't real. They are horrible people who tend to prey on vulnerable people and scam them out of their money. So just keep that in mind. Next week I'll have an actual expert in. And, thanks for listening. And again, so sorry.